Hello and welcome to Inspired DI. My name is Coach Kate. This is the unofficial Destination Imagination podcast for team managers and anyone who wants to learn a little bit more about the Destination Imagination process. I am a seasoned coach and former STEAM competitor. Today, we're going to talk about getting your team ready for tournament. So this podcast is going to air at the end of January. And this is about the time where there's a lot of teams who are starting to feel like we're getting close to tournament season. And maybe you're feeling like your team is right on track to get everything completed. They've come up with ideas for almost all of the elements. They've been building, creating, working together. Or you may feel like your team has nothing. You may feel like your team has chit-chatted about a lot of topics, about a lot of ideas, but maybe hasn't pulled things quite together, and you're starting to feel like they should get a move on. We are going to talk today about the 3 things to do now to prepare your team for tournament. The number 1 thing you can do to help prepare your team for tournament is, I like to say, get real. What are we to get real about? Let's get real about what your challenge requires. Those elements in the challenge that must be completed. How do you know what must be completed? It's written in the challenge, and also a big help to figure out exactly really what you need to have is flipping towards the end of that challenge to the scoring sheet. When you can see exactly what is being scored, how it's being scored, that is really helpful in helping to direct your team. So what I like to do is first write a list of the elements that the team has to complete. These are the things that are going to be scored, every scored element. You can do this anywhere. You can do this on sticky notes and just make a list and stick it onto the wall for each element that has to be done. If you have a poster, you can write a list on the poster. If you have a whiteboard, you could do that. If you have a chalkboard, you could do that. Just somewhere that your team can visually see each item that they have to complete. So what does this mean? Well, let's talk about the crazy, super popular one this year, which is the technical challenge. I'm not going to go into too much detail about this because I know not every team is doing technical, but there are a lot. So I'm just using that as an example. So there are 3 technical elements. What else is there? There are the characters that are required. You need a host. You need at least 1 competitor. You need the 3 technical elements. You need a story. Within that story, what do you need? You need a raising the stakes event. And then in addition to each of those things that I just stated, you need 2 team choice elements. So if you were doing the technical challenge this year, you can take out some sticky notes or even a piece of paper for each element, but make sure you have them each individually. Don't just list on a piece of paper all of the elements. It really is helpful for the children to see on its own sheet of paper what those elements are. And it just has to be the word of the element. It doesn't need to be the details of everything you need for that element. So it needs to be team choice element 1, needs to be on its own sticky note or piece of paper. Team choice element 2, technical element 1, technical element 2, technical element 3, story, host, contestant, raising the stakes event. There we go. I might have forgotten something, so please, if you are doing the technical challenge, please do look back at the challenge and see if there are any other elements that are needed for that challenge. Similarly, if you're doing fine arts challenge, that's going to be another one of the really popular ones this year. What are your elements? Team choice element 1, team choice element 2. You need a superhero. You need a supervillain. You need an event or situation that they encounter that give them the powers. What are the other elements for that? You need the other 2 big elements that are outside of the story, which are the technical costume and stage makeup. So on a sheet of or a sticky note, write each one of those. Again, please look at the challenge and make sure that I did not forget any major elements. Then get another sheet of paper for each one. And if your team has an idea for that element, or if they've already created something for that element, write that down on another sticky note or a piece of paper. What have they created? What is their idea? If they have multiple ideas, write those both down. What are the multiple ideas? Because now's the time to get real. We're going to make choices. This is the time that choices are being made. Decisions are being made now. Okay. That's why I say get real. We're getting real on what we need to do and accomplish. Okay, so now you're writing a list of every idea that they have for each element. So for element one, let's say it's, if you're doing fine arts challenge, let's say it's the technical costume. Here's our idea for our technical costume. Have we built any of it yet? No. Have we drawn a picture? Yes. Great. We've got a picture of our idea. Okay. Next, notice those elements that we do not have a solution or idea for. Today, we're going to look at those as well. The great part about this getting real idea is to let the team visually see what they have done, what they haven't done, what decisions they have made, what decisions they need to make. Second, of these 3 things to do now to prepare for tournament, just do it. Now is the time to create. If your team has an idea for an element, but they have not started building it yet, or they have started building it, but it's not going very well, or they started building it, but it's not quite exactly what they want their finished product to look like, it's time to get it done now. So just do it. Any ideas they've been discussing, now's the time to build and create. It is action time and start creating. What if you have a team that has a lot of ideas but hasn't really started creating anything and isn't quite sure about what they should do and what exactly they should create? Well, I've got a few tricks of the trade that we like to do on our teams to really get the ball rolling here. And now is the time. Towards the end of January, now is the time to really start creating your projects. So what's the first thing I like to do? If they really haven't come up with an idea of how they're going to build or create the idea that they have come up with, or maybe they haven't even really come up with a very clear idea, we do a little brainstorming time. I'll give each kid some paper and pencil markers, colored pencils, and have everybody sit without talking for 10 to 15 minutes to write down your ideas. This is to write down, to draw designs, to write down the idea that you have for a certain element. A lot of times kids don't start thinking about things until they're with the whole team, and then the ideas start coming. It's like a team creativity bubble that they're in when they're together. So what we're going to do is just take about 10 minutes to write. If they're littler, you can take 5 or 6 minutes to write. If they're older, they might want even more time. If you know some of them are not going to sit and write for 5, 10, 15 minutes, that's okay. Not all children have that focus, want to do that. Not all kids will be energized by that. You can break them up into different groups and you can say, this group, what do you guys want to work on? And maybe there's a group of kids, 2 or 3, that are just more hands-on and want to build instead of sitting down and writing quietly. That's fine as well. So you can break them up into groups. You can break them up into groups depending on the element. So you might have 2 kids who have been talking about one element a lot and another kid or 2 who's been talking about costumes and another kid or 2 that's been talking about the script. And you could break them up and have those kids have the script writer go over and start writing the script, have the costume people to be discussing and drawing out costume ideas, and have these other 2 kids who really are interested in the technical element continue to brainstorm that. That's okay to separate them. And it's actually a really great idea because it does become more efficient. If you have kids that really are not interested in costumes, but you do have 1 or 2 kids that are, separate them and let those kids thrive in what they're interested in and work on that. Not the entire team does not need to be discussing how every single element will be completed every time someone has an idea. You can separate them. So this is part of the just do it time. If they've already drawn up a design or have an idea of what they want to do, have them get to work. Now is the time. Just start creating something. What they come up with might end up being something that they use in their final project, or it might be a prototype for something that they decide to build more structurally sound with different materials. They might come up with more ideas of how to make something work. They might realize that an idea that they had isn't going to work because they started creating it in a certain way and it's not looking the way that they wanted to, or it's not working the way they wanted to. But the only way to figure that out is if they just do it. Just get started on something. Along those lines, we tend to, especially for my younger teams, have a table out where they can continuously create things all the time, just manipulate materials throughout the meeting while we're discussing whatever topic it is we're discussing that day. So if we're discussing a certain element or we're discussing the storyline, I'm just writing down their ideas on a board, whatever they're shooting out. There might be kids manipulating materials at the table. And what are those materials? We usually have a bin out on the table that just has recyclables. The kids will often bring recyclables from their homes that they collected during the week, and that stays here, and we put it into our bin. That's often things like, what have they been bringing lately? Like cardboard boxes, cereal boxes, sometimes they bring along. One girl brought some glitter glue, little like pens that she wanted to use for some leaves she was making for something. Another one, sometimes they'll just bring like some wire because they found some wire and they thought that would be fun to do something with. And then in the meantime, at my house, I just tend to, instead of throwing things in the recycling bin all the time, I'll just periodically grab a plastic container that had fruit in it. Cardboard Amazon boxes, I'll grab a whole bunch of those and I just stick those in my garage if they need those. And then I always have markers, just construction paper, tape, scissors, things like that available for the kids to use while they're just manipulating materials during our meeting. This is really helpful for the younger team, I've found. They're not as experienced in manipulating materials. They don't always know what they can create because they haven't been playing with recycled materials for years and years like my older teams have. So it's nice for them to just play around. Sometimes, if we get a gift, I'll just put the wrapping paper in the bin of materials that they can play with, or tissue paper, or whatever it is that we find, a toilet paper roll, paper towel rolls, things like that. Whatever you have laying around the house that's clean that kids can use, you can just collect and have those things available for kids to manipulate during your meetings. So this is all part of the just do it time. Now is the time to just start creating things, because it leads into my third thing to do right now to prepare for tournament. And my third thing is go with it. What do I mean by go with it? Every single element that your team creates is not going to be the greatest, most wonderful thing in the world. Sometimes just having something when you turn in your paperwork, and we'll talk about paperwork in a few weeks, but just to have something, an element, something that is going to be part of your presentation, that's better than nothing. Okay? So I'm going to repeat that again. Something is always better than nothing. So just go with it. If your kids come up with something and they're very, very busy working on all of the other items, if they come up with something or they create something, good, go with it. Just tell them, stick with that. Just go with what you have. If they want to build on that later on, that's fine too. If they want to make it better, that's fine. But every team is not going to have enough time to make everything exactly how they had planned or exactly how they think they could make it, or have enough time to really complete something living up to that original idea that they had, and that is okay. It's also okay if you end up going to tournament and you just didn't do an element. But if your team tries, meaning they present something, they will get points for that something. Even if it is the worst something the appraisers have ever seen in the history of whatever that something is, they will still get 1 or 2 points for that at minimum. They'll get something. Something's better than nothing. If they don't present anything, they won't get any points. The appraisers cannot give points to something that doesn't exist. So go with it. Go with something, because something will get you points. Nothing will not. It's okay if it's not the greatest thing in the world. If they don't love it, but they love something else they created, maybe that other thing's going to get so many points that it's going to be fine. But just go with it. It's not time to discuss more. It's just time to do. Stop the talking and get moving with building. Get moving with creating. It doesn't matter at this point what they're creating. You know what I'm going to do right now? If you are watching me, instead of listening on just the podcast, I'm going to show what my DI room looks like. So I have 2 teams working here. I have an elementary school team, little elementary school 8-year-olds, and then I have a high school team working. I did luck out with a donated whiteboard, a whiteboard magnetic board. So on one side, my high school team works, and the other side, my elementary school teamwork. So I just turn it around depending on who's working on it. This is my board, and we have lots of things going on. We have lots of things written. I have 2 colored sheets of construction paper that were cut in halves. The orange color is the actions that are happening in their story. And the green color is what needs to be created for those actions or those scenes. We also have on this board some drawings of some potential technical elements. We have lists of potential things going on in the game show. We have, oh my goodness, sticky notes I see in the corner about just other ideas when they were deciding on which ideas they were going to do. So that is one side of my DI room. The other side of my DI room is this table I was talking about with all of the materials. On my table of materials, we just have a bin of markers, colored pencils, a bin of items that that team is working on, its own plastic bin so it doesn't get confused with my other team. So anything this is my little kids team has created, they put it into a bin, a large, like plastic bin that says their team name on it and anything that they've created for their team, pieces of costume, pieces of elements, just ideas that they've come up with that goes in that bin. So the big team knows that any supplies that are in that bin are being used by the little team. Okay. And then we just have boxes. We have recyclable materials that are just all over the table, a bunch of tape, scissors, glue. Somehow a Lego ended up there that is not part of a DI project, but Legos end up everywhere. So that's what is there. And then continuing the grand tour of the DI room is on the other side, we have a number of boxes. These boxes are filled with packing material, foam, packing paper, those packing air bubble things. Okay, so that's over on that side of the room. So these are all materials that are available for either team to use whenever they come to practice and whenever they come to the DI room. When I say DI room, you don't have to have a particular space in your house devoted to DI all the time. This is just my basement, and these are just areas of my basement. I fold up the table and put away all the materials when kids aren't coming over. And I take all of these big Amazon boxes filled with junk and throw them in my garage if we're having, if people are using the basement for something else. But for right now, these are the things that we have out. And this is what we do to help the kids create. Now, with the high school team, they prepare a little bit differently. They don't do as much hands-on work in the beginning or throughout every meeting as my younger team does. The reason is they're doing a little more sophisticated drawings and plannings and designs. They're also discussing a lot more about the storyline. They're having a lot more deeper discussions because it's just a little bit more, as you would expect, a little more sophisticated product that they're going to put out versus the younger team. And every team is going to be different. When these kids get together, they're learning every time they come together. Every time they're manipulating materials, they're learning. And they can use those ideas in the future for either building something for their DI team challenge, or they might think about it when they're doing an instant challenge later on. So now is really the time to get moving and creating. There was one town coordinator that was our town coordinator for many years. And his favorite line was, "Nothing gets built until 2 weeks before tournament." And he had teams that went to global finals. And so, hey, he knew what he was talking about. But I always found that line so funny. Some teams just don't get their act together until they're feeling that pressure, until tournament is right around the corner. So many kids are so busy these days. They have so many things on their schedule. As they get older, their schedule becomes more serious and they're really taking their activities more seriously. And they might just not have time to spend hours on end building and focusing on their DI project until it gets so close that they go, "Oh no, we need to finish it." So just to review the 3 things to do now to prepare for tournament. I said 1, get real. Write out the elements that your team has to do to complete the challenge and get real with what they have and what they don't have. What they have an idea for, what they don't have an idea for, what they've created having to do with an element and what they still have to create so that they can see what they have and what needs to be done. Next, just do it. Get it done. Just do something. take action. Taking action is the only way that things get started, and they might create something that is going to be used at tournament, and they might not, but at least they've got something and they're taking action. And the third is go with it. Remember, these are tips for team managers. These are just to help the kids get organized, and that's what we're allowed to do. We are allowed to help them manage the tasks at hand, manage what they are supposed to do, and manage the rules. We're not there to manage how they do it or the ideas that they come up with or which ideas are the best. Just go with it. Next week, we are going to talk about more ways to get your team ready, including instant challenge practice and preparing them for that tournament day. There's a lot coming out from DI headquarters about filling out paperwork, so I don't think we're going to go over that in the podcast. I think that's going to be covered. So we're going to talk more about what to do next to get your team really prepared for tournament. They're going to do great. If you liked this podcast or any of the Inspire DI podcasts, please share with a friend so I know to keep creating them. And please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so that we could also get the word out that we exist. You have any questions? Always feel free to comment or send an email to CoachKateDI@gmail.com. So again, thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.